Have you ever tried crouching instead of dodging? I don't think so. The thing is, you're missing out. Elden Ring has an insane amount of mechanics that people miss out on because the game doesn't explain it. Crouching is just one of many. The tutorial talks about stealth, but doesn't mention anything about going under attacks with it. Or this long-forgotten spell that can flat out just break the game. FromSoft likes to be vague, which is the reason we missed so many things for 3 entire years. So I am left wondering, just how far can we push it? Let's find out. Rolling is a bad habit. Crouching, on the other hand, has way more utility than you think. Add something like Iron Balls or Golden Vow and you can lower your hitbox and standards even further. Or if you're feeling bold, just cry underground and go feed the hermit crabs. The best part? Crouching doesn't cost stamina at all, unlike rolling. Bonus points for looking absolutely ridiculous while doing it. In addition to that, you can also follow up with a crouch attack, one of the most underrated mechanics in PvE. Use them more often, especially against NPCs. Another lesser known trick is animation cancelling. Normally, attack animations lock you in place for longer than you would expect. You can roll out of them, sure, but if you want to stay aggressive and land another hit before taking a riposte, rolling just won't cut it. Instead, simply crouch after an attack to escape the animation sooner and sneak in a riposte where you normally wouldn't be able to. Holding guard does the same thing and both are extremely useful. Pro tip, holding guard while picking up items lets you skip most of the animation. All of this goes hand in hand with jumping and strafing. The DLC has a ridiculous number of attacks that you can simply jump over or sidestep entirely. Sometimes you barely need to move at all. Fasten your seatbelts, this is gonna get crazy. You can parry that? Special mentions to the guy's jump that lets you avoid his annoying dash. There's only one problem. Crops in the world can be extremely fragile, but luckily there's a way to avoid breaking them entirely. When you jump, you become an active hitbox that deals 0 damage and 0 poise. However, this hitbox is still enough to activate objects that require only a hit to trigger, such as illusory walls. The same principle applies to breakable decorations. If you jump into them, they break, but if you land on top of them instead, they remain intact. For the guy's jump, this means that you simply jump early to ensure you land cleanly on the swords without breaking them. Admittedly, not all of these dodges are useful. Consort has what might be the single hardest dodge in the entire game and one of the hardest parries, the Meteor Strafe. This dodge is unbelievably difficult to pull off and honestly does nothing other than impress. and parrying him out of his clone attack requires incredibly precise timing, but I would say it's actually kind of worth doing if you trust yourself. While on the topic of parrying, the DLC offers way more parry opportunities than ever before, and it's also a lot easier than you think if you use Golden Parry or especially Carrying Retaliation. Golden Parry has slightly more range, while Retaliation has more iframes, or parry frames, which makes it a lot more forgiving. Despite encouraging parrying, however, FromSoft made some wacky decisions in the DLC. For instance, did you know that Mesmer can be parried? Probably not, because it only works doing these 3 specific attacks. Even weirder, Romina is the only DLC boss that staggers after a single parry. But okay, let's talk about Carrying Retaliation. I mentioned it in the intro, but I didn't mention it because of parrying. Technically. If you've been around for a while, you might remember when the spell was so broken that speedrunners used it to breeze through the game. The issue was that you could parry on projectiles, turning them into glint blades that dealt absurd amounts of damage. That got nerfed. The big thing, however, is parrying spells. I think these clips will speak for themselves. I wish. Oh my god, I wish. By now, most people know about the shackle trick. But if you don't, Margit's and Moog's shackle can break Spirit Spring rocks from a ridiculous distance. If you don't have one, a well-aimed mighty shot with any cheap bow will work as well. If Leda's endless yapping annoys you, shut up. Just turn around and walk away. If you leave the circular room entirely, she will stop talking and disappear, sparing you from the speech. The gravity spin Ash of War can technically help with some skips, like jumping from Euphoria to Dancing Lion, but in practice, it's not all that useful. Still really cool though. A much better skip, however, is in Lamenter's Jail. What? If you spam jump on the crumbling ground, you can actually jump on thin air and reach the other side. Congrats, you just skipped half of the dungeon and grabbed the Screaming Torch. This torch is a lot more important than you might think at first. When using it, it screams for some reason, which gets really annoying very quickly. And gives you a stealth buff for 15 seconds, making you harder to see. This happens to stack with Assassin's Gambit and crouching, and allows you to make some enemy-filled areas a complete walk in the park. Literally. But back to Leda. So why not just use the weed cutter and go whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh to stun lock them? Or use the helicopter. As long as you angle it down to where you hit the kneecaps, they can't walk away. The throwing shield is another great option, as NPCs will roll with the initial throw, but not the homing part. Or just hide from them entirely and throw shit at them. On the topic of bowling, however, the throwing spear plays a role as well. Even when you don't meet the stat requirements, it can still be thrown to create a loud source of sound that distracts enemies. Add some stealth and you can pretty much avoid every encounter. Like a bitch. You know what's annoying? Long, dramatic door opening animations that immediately suck you into a cutscene, ruining all of your buffs. So what if I told you that you can avoid that entirely? When opening the door to Dancing Lion, just spam B to dash backwards before the cutscene starts. Now you can buff in peace before going into the cutscene and starting the fight. For Mesmer, teleport to the bridge grace outside as soon as you start opening the door. Buff up, step back in, and once you get close, you will be teleported into the fight, fully prepared. The Fine Crucible Feather Talisman is one of the best items ever made, and all it does is add backstab iframes. One of rolling's biggest downside is and always has been the fact that in order to roll, you have to roll away from the boss, losing positioning and potentially putting yourself out of weapon range. Backstabs eliminate that issue entirely, and because the animation is so quick, you can chain them back to back and dodge multi-hit attacks that rolling simply wouldn't be fast enough to avoid. You can also control the direction of a backstab by looking off. If you are fast enough, you can technically press B and immediately flick the stick to turn mid backstab, allowing you to, technically backstab forward. Speaking of amazing additions, did you know that the deflect tier is pretty much the same as Royal Knight's Resolve? Every consecutive parry you land increases your guard counter damage by 20%, stacking up to 80%. And as far as I can tell, the buff doesn't get consumed, it just runs out after a set amount of time. This is huge, especially because it stacks with RKR. Some bosses that normally feel overwhelming when rolling can be turned into complete pushovers. And the best part, you don't even need to be a parry god to use it effectively. At this point, many people know about undead damage bonuses and death boats. It's easy to one-shot them no matter what level you are. But if I told you that the same thing applies to the big and intimidating ghost flame dragons, would you believe me? The key is to stack 2 sacred orders. You use last right first, then switch to having both swords in off and main hand. Two-hand the left one, you have to do the left one first. Buff, then undo two-handing and buff the right one, for a total of 300% extra damage to undead. Now simply throw a single, pathetic, tiny little holy pot at the head, and that's it. The same applies to Light of Miquella, should you have happened to skip this disgusting encounter until the very end. Light of Miquella is also a very great tool for sniping dungeon rooms or killing enemies around corners. Another slept-on option is Goldenland. Did you know that this Ash of War has pretty much near infinite range? And because it's holy and has somewhat reliable tracking, it's a great option to hit dragon heads. Certain Ash of Wars have very hidden utility that a lot of people overlook. White Shadow Lure, for example, works on foes of human build, which happens to apply to the Blood Fiends. While the lure is out, you might as well not exist. This scenario is probably familiar to you. This means that you can cycle between placing it and attacking them at literally zero risk of getting hit. It also works on the boss. Spectral Lance has insane tracking, very good range, and does very high stance damage. It's especially effective against dragons or as a filler attack when the boss is too far away to be hit. It's also chef's kiss for Senesax while hiding behind one of these two rocks up here. Stormblade is busted. I cannot put into words just how overpowered it is. Up close it hits twice, and because of how it swings, it can be used on a greatsword to effectively swing the sword faster than you usually could, while also hitting twice. And it deals blunt damage, especially good against stone type enemies. You can get it at the very start of the game, and it's viable until the very end, better than any bow or spell that you could ever get on a melee character. It is easily one of, if not the single best Ash of War in the entire game. Buy it less than 5 minutes into the run and you will never stop using it. Another basic Ash of War that's actually amazing is Impaling Thrust. It has very good tracking, as long as you don't have your back turned to the enemy, so it's good against bosses like Bale, where hitting the head can sometimes be a little difficult. It also deals pierce damage, which is the single best damage type in the game, and a lot of poise damage, so Bale goes down very easily if you combine it with Dragon Grease. The Sunflower weapon is very good against Gaius, Sacred Relic Sword against Putrescent, and Mesmer Spear against Sunflower. Also, if you backstep 3 times when the flower respawns, you can get out of range and hit him when he comes out. And if you roll towards the entrance in the beginning of phase 2, you can get far enough away to where his hitbox no longer has a collision and you can hit his head for free for a few seconds. He also usually gets stuck in a wall, so his projectiles can't hit you. And on top of all of that, if you jump twice as the light is starting to come out of him and then roll, you can avoid his explosion every time, even up close. The Claws of Night are flat out broken. The weapon art up close inflicts crazy bleed, the moveset is good, and it's very fast because it's a claw weapon. The throw also angles up, which means you can use it to stun knock the Death Knight by headshotting him over and over. Pro tip, Death Knights are very easy to backstab. If you are struggling with Yoda, simply run away until he teleports and walk under him. Easy backstab. Okay, before I get into the last few things, please complain about Meteor so FromSoft fixes are. The laser attack is literally undodgeable, and I mean that. Not even the best players found a way other than Raptors of the Mist, and even that isn't reliable. Anyways, sorry. Rani's Moon and the Black Hole spell can destroy Radan's meteors, allowing you to use, for example, the parry tier to easily deal with the rest of the clones. And lastly, even though a lot of people already know about it, if you throw a furnace pot into the golem right after riposting him, you can instantly kill him. Thank me later.